Hello everyone and welcome to the second lockdown interview here on the Cycling Dane channel. Today's interview is with Reinardt Janse van Rensburg of South Africa, so enjoy. Hello everyone, I'm delighted to be joined by Reinardt Janse van Rensburg from NTT Pro Cycling. Hi Reinardt, how's it going?
Hi, good and you?
Hi, are you in South Africa now?
Yes, I'm in South Africa. Just before Spain went into the lockdown, I came back home.
What's the lockdown like in South Africa?
South Africa is really strict. It's probably one of the strictest countries out there. Only the supermarkets are open, but you can only buy like necessities. You can't buy anything in the supermarket, so only like fresh food and basic bare necessities like alcohol is banned, cigarettes are banned. We're not allowed to exercise outside. So yeah, they're pretty strict down here.
So how are you keeping fit in this troubled time?
Yeah, thank goodness we've got stuff like Zwift at the moment. I've got a smart trainer with Zwift, so that keeps me motivated to get on the bike. At least you can ride with other people there and you can do kind of virtual racing. So that's kept it fun and helped me to stay on the trainer for longer than what I usually would.
So I know it's a bit of an annoying question to ask, but what were your 2020 goals kind of before this happened ordeal? I know you've raced a bit already, but what were kind of your targets for this year?
Well, I was hoping to do the Giro this year for the first time. Never done Giro, did the Tour 5 times, Vuelta once, never Giro. So I was hoping to do that this year, and also the classics was a big focus, like the Flanders and Roubaix again. So yeah, it's disappointing that it can't happen. Or well, we'll see about the Giro, but the classics, I guess, is all for the year.
Do you think the classics might get rescheduled, and do you think that would kind of change the racing, having it in autumn instead of in the spring?
Yeah, look, the plan right now, it seems like they want to put everything from end of August onwards. So 3 Grand Tours, a lot of classics, worlds, everything. So yeah, there's not really a lot of time and a lot of racing to happen. So I guess they're going to have to look at what the priority races are. And hopefully by the end of the year, we can have a gap in the year where we can race. But unfortunately, we just have to see at the moment. We can't predict what the situation is going to be in the end of the year, and hopefully we can still race.
Would you be tempted to do the Giro and the Tour if that was an option, or would you just stay to the Giro?
I guess if they're gonna make it like that, 3 Grand Tours and basically, I don't know, 2.5 months, you're probably gonna only be able to do one.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do 2. So every rider is probably gonna only be able to do 1.
So taking it a bit away from this annoying time we're in, let's just get back to how you started as cycling. What got you into cycling, and how did you kind of go from having it as an interest and then going to become a pro? What were kind of like, because South Africa isn't, well, now it's a lot more cycling orientated with you and Darragh Impey and Ryan Gibbons kind of taking the sport forward. Was there much cycling that you could get involved with?
Well, I started off with my father. He was had to do it for health reasons. He had to change his lifestyle and get fit and lose weight. So he got us into the sport. I didn't really like it at first until I got a road bike, a fast road bike, and then I started enjoying it more. And yeah, there was always races, like every weekend, every Saturday or Sunday, there was races around that you could go and race, and it was pretty competitive back then already. So yeah, I think the sport has changed in South Africa, that mountain biking has become much more popular. There's so many mountain bikes events on the calendar in South Africa. It's almost every weekend you can do a multi-stage race if you want. So that's really taken over the calendar, and I think the road scene has actually got less big, but the mountain bike scene has definitely exploded.
Have you gotten involved with any mountain biking?
I've never done a mountain bike race because when I was younger, it didn't really exist. But now there's quite a lot of races. It really exploded. But yeah, I actually got myself a mountain bike a couple of months ago for the first time, and I'm kind of wondering why I didn't get it earlier. Right? So I would like to do some events when I get the chance.
So between 2007 to 2010, you were doing some races in Europe. Were you part of a under 23 squad at this point, or?
Yeah, in 2006 and 2007, we had like a junior team that was we scrapped together a team to go over in Belgium, and we were still juniors racing in Belgium for 2 months, both 2006, 2007. And then in 2010, I went with the national team for about a month. And then 2011 and 12, this team was MTN before. And we, as MTN, we went across to Europe to do some racing in Europe.
So in 2012, you kind of had your one of your breakthrough years where you kind of won so many stages. You won 3 stage GC victories, and you also became individual time trial champion for South Africa. How was that year? Did you feel like something just clicked and you become like you kind of went to the next level?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal year, 2012. Like everything came together. All the training worked out well. Never had any injuries, never had any illnesses. So everything just came together that year, and I think everything clicked. And yeah, there was not many things that was going wrong that year. So just had superb form, and the races also, almost every race kind of went my way. So yeah, I won quite a lot of races also.
You won a very famous race, the Tour de Brittany. How was racing there? Was it a, like, could you feel that it was to the next level, or you were racing against really strong riders at this point?
Yeah, we just came from the Tour of Morocco, and then I think a week later we did the Tour of Brittany in the north of France. And yeah, the level was really high. And I think the first couple of days I actually lost time in the first 3 days every day because of splits in the pelotons and stuff like that. But yeah, the level was really high, and I remember a lot of crosswind sections, and yeah, it was completely different than what we were racing in Morocco. So it took a couple of days to get into it, and then finally, after a while, I started finding my legs over it.
Yeah, you won the Tour of Morocco as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
And just to put it in perspective, you won on stage 4 up quite a steep climb.
Breton.
Yeah, and the person who finished 4th that day was Julian Alaphilippe. So you definitely were in like the level was high, basically.
Yes. Alaphilippe was still, I think, 18 years old at that time, so he was still young. But yeah, looking back at the results, I didn't realize there was a guy with the name of Julian Alaphilippe.
So in 2013, you signed for Team Argos Shimano. How was that level, the change in teams? Could you see a difference in kind of being on a world tour team at that point?
Yeah, it was a big step up coming from MTN. We were Continental back then, and we only did like limited racing in Europe. So to go from only doing limited racing right into the world tour was quite a big step up. It's a completely different game. Yeah, it was something. It's hard to compare the two between each other because yeah, it's different worlds.
You also did as you alluded to before, your first Vuelta a España that year. How was that? How was doing your first Grand Tour?
Yeah, it was quite scary because it's the first time that you're going to be racing 21 days in a row. So it's kind of like mentally you have to be up for the challenge and also take it day by day and work your way through it. So it's quite intimidating before your first Grand Tour, and you come to the first race day and you're already completely broken. And you don't know how you're going to do the next half. But yeah, I got through it pretty well. I think in the end, I was still in a couple of breakaways and still did a couple of lead outs in the last week. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that.
So did you feel, was it the most fatigued you felt ever coming out of that race?
At that point, definitely. That point was definitely most fatigued I was.
Did you feel like you, after you'd recovered, that you kind of improved as a rider, or did you notice an improvement?
Yeah, for sure. I think once you did your first Grand Tour and you get through the recovery pretty well, I think you go to a new level. And also mentally, you're on a different level than what you were before.
So it wasn't long after that you actually took a quite famous race in Belgium, I can't pronounce it, the Binchi, yeah.
Binch.
That one. So how did you feel strong on the day before? How was kind of like, did you feel like you were going to win the race, or was it a shock to you when you won it? Because you beat some very good riders, Greg Van Avermaet, Jurgen, and Leukemans as well.
I didn't really think I was going to win that day. I had a crash earlier that day also. So also in the final laps, I didn't really feel particularly good. But then the last cobble section is about 1K to go, and it finishes, or you still finish on the cobbles. I think that's when the motivation came and the power came. Suddenly I realized I'm in a shot to win it. And yeah, it was quite a shock to beat guys like Van Avermaet and Leukemans, who was top of their game at that time.
Are the cobbles something you definitely, that is kind of, what kind of rider would you put yourself as? We've seen that you can sprint, you can time trial, you can kind of do a lot of things, and something that we'll get onto, you even won a stage race that's famous for climbers, the Tour de Langkawi. So what kind, are you just that all-rounder that can do pretty much everything, or would you say you're a sprinter more or a cobbles classics specialist?
I'm probably better suited to the cobble classics, but it requires a lot of dedication and focus, and you have to know the sections by heart, every section, and so that takes a while. But I think in the future I want to focus more developing that, because I think my attributes are more suited to that than either sprinting or also I can climb, but I can definitely not climb with a normal climber. So I can maybe survive the climbs and sprint from there, but I'm not a guy that's gonna win uphill finishes or hilltop finishes.
What was your first experience of Paris-Roubaix in 2014 like?
Yeah, Roubaix is one of those special races. It's one of the first iconic races that capture your imagination as a kid. So it's quite special to go to Roubaix. And I just remember I had my hands all taped up, and that didn't help me at all, because next day I just had blisters everywhere. And also, it's so hard on the body that for a couple of days afterwards, you're still hurting. It's quite special, because it's really unique race on the calendar. One time a year we can do that.
Can you feel the difference between the cobbles in Paris-Roubaix and the cobbles in the Tour of Flanders, for instance?
Yeah, the cobbles in Roubaix versus Flanders, the cobbles in Roubaix is much rougher, much less maintained. The stones seems to be bigger and further apart from each other. So it's almost like you're riding on a gravel road with some rocks in it, rather than you're riding on a cobbled street. So the Flanders cobbles are much smoother, but on Flanders most of the sections are uphill. And then Roubaix it's flat.
Which one do you prefer to ride now that you've kind of experienced both of them? I mean, you've ridden Paris-Roubaix 5 times now. and Tour of Flanders 6 times?
I prefer Roubaix, I think, because Roubaix, I think, awards you more if you're willing to take a chance. Flanders is quite hard, so if you're willing to go into early breaks and stuff, it kind of get neutralized, and the best or the strongest riders are always in the front group. But in Roubaix, you can play it a little bit tactically. You can have different options, and it's not so sure. It's unpredictable who's going to be the winner. So I think it's more in Roubaix that you can play a little bit.
In 2015, you went back to MTN Quebec. Well, could you notice the difference from when you left the team as a continental team and now to a pro continental?
Was totally different because our base back then was from South Africa. So we operated from South Africa until 2013. And then we had to build the structure up pretty much from scratch in Europe. So it kind of became like a real European-based team. All the structure had to be put in place. So yeah, it was completely different world. All the infrastructure in the last 2 years that I was gone was built up, and we had some good riders, really good riders in the team. And also we started to get invites to the biggest races like Tour de France that year.
Yeah, so 2015 was actually your first Tour de France as well. How was that like? Did the Tour live up to the hype, like being the biggest race in the world? Could you notice the difference between the Tour de France and just a normal European race?
Yeah, it's always amazing how much media attention there is at the Tour de France, and also attention from public. The crowds are so big, and it's like a constant noise in Tour de France. Like I remember the first day, we started in Utrecht. I remember for the first 50 kilometers, there was non-stop people next to the side of the road cheering and clapping. So kind of like felt like they were almost inside your head after a while, that it's like your head starting beating because of the people clapping. So yeah, that was quite an experience. But yeah, I think the Tour is also one of those events that you dream about as a young boy. So it's really special to do your first Tour.
Did the crowds cheering you on, did it help or did it hinder you, or did it was it positive or was it too much in a way?
The first couple of days was a little bit overwhelming, I would say. So I think the first couple of days kind of gives you more pressure, and it's easy to get lost, get squashed by that pressure. But then in the third week, when you're really suffering, then it definitely spurs you on.
Was there one particular climb in that Tour that you found very annoying or very hard, or was it just all the mountains were hard at that point?
I remember one specific day, we were lying second in the team competition, which was quite a surprise. I think we lost Louis Meintjes because he was ill. And then on one of the mountain stages, I had to be the third guy of the team. So the first three guys, they take the time on first three guys. So it ended up that I was the third guy of the team on the road. I basically had to keep on racing all the way to the finish. And I was dropped on my own, passing people on my groups on my own. So yeah, that was quite an experience, like coming to the finish and still keeping our second place on Team GC intact, but I had to completely empty myself for it.
Who was the team that were chasing you?
Movistar was leading, but I think we had Sky, we had AG2R, we had 3 or 4 teams pretty close behind us. I think in the end we finished 5th.
That's still pretty impressive to have climbing teams such as that behind you.
Yeah, we actually played it pretty smart because we kept on. Was quite a lot of breakaways that year in the Tour de France that survived, and we always had 2 or 3 guys in the breakaway. So then we always score time on the.
Who were the 2 other riders in your team that were counting the team time with you?
Well, it's basically on a daily classification. So every day it kind of changed, but we had guys like Steve Cummins, Louis Benches, Daniel Tekleimanot, Sergio Pels. So we had some good climbers there. Jacques van Rensburg also. So we had guys that could go in the breakaways and score some time and kind of sneak upon the team classification.
So jumping to 2016, well, actually, we can talk about, you went to the World Championships that year as well. What was it like? What is it like going to the World Championships and representing your country? Because you only have very few days. Well, you have the Olympics and the World Championships where you kind of group together as riders from different teams to represent South Africa. What was that like? And what is it like?
Yeah, it's a really proud moment to represent your nation on the world stage. So a thing like Worlds, it's in cycling, you don't really get a bigger national event apart from Olympics. So it's always a privilege to go there. But yeah, Worlds is always a special thing because you've got the kind of like infighting within the groups and the teams also. So yeah, it's always special tactics at Worlds, and you're never quite sure what certain nations are going to do, if they're going to work together or they're going to be selfish, or are they going to work in the trade teams. So that's always quite a funny thing. And there's always, yeah, you're not with your normal professional setup that you used to. You're now in a national setup, so that changes things a little bit. But I think World still remains a special race, and to be world champion is an incredible thing that you would aim for.
So, well, just keeping on the World Championship theme, you did the under-23 race in Copenhagen. How was that? So you're basically racing the streets that I grew up on. How was Copenhagen? Did you enjoy it?
Copenhagen was my first Worlds that I've been to. So yeah, I was really proud to be there. I think I finished 17th or something in the end there, which was surprising. I didn't actually expect to be up there. I was still in a pretty good position. For a moment, I thought I could win it, but then the legs seized. But yeah, it was really a nice experience.
So jumping back to 2016, we alluded to this. You won the Tour of Langkawi. How for you was that week? How, like, stage by stage, was there one stage where you definitely won? How were you feeling through the week, basically?
Yeah, the Tour of Langkawi, there was quite a lot of bonus seconds up for grabs. I think we did 10 stages and 9 of them were flat. So, and with the intermediate sprints, I knew I could score a lot of seconds against the climber. There was one mountaintop finish up Cameron Islands, which is not the hardest climb in the world, but it's super long. So all week we were kind of analyzing Cameron Islands and trying to work out how much time I would need. And then I think Superman Lopez, he got about 45 seconds on me on the top of Cameron Islands. But then it was kind of like a race between him and me for the bonus seconds. So I was always sprinting against his teammate Gardini in all the bonus sprints to try and get seconds. But unfortunately, one day, about 5 kilometers from the finish, he had a mechanical, so he lost time. And then it pretty much resulted in me leapfrogging him in the end. So then I was pretty comfortable from there.
Is the Tour of Langkawi one of your proudest wins, or where would you kind of rank it in your wins of your career?
Yeah, Tour of Langkawi is definitely one of the proudest ones. I would say Binchi was probably the proudest one that you talked about. And then also winning national champs, because you can, for 1 year riding in the national colors is always a big honor and a nice feeling.
So you did that in 2017. You won your first elite road race champion title. how was that? Because you went to the Tour de France that year, and you basically had, as you said, a whole year where you were just wearing the South African colours. What was that like? Did you feel like every time you went to a race, you were representing South Africa that bit more, wearing the jersey?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, you feel like you're representing your country, and it definitely gives you more motivation every race when you put it on to do your best. So every time you show the jersey, you also get recognized. So it kind of always like gives you the motivation to go that extra bit. So for me, it's really one of the biggest things is to win nationals, because you get that privilege.
It's a very competitive title now to win.
Yeah, definitely. MP has been pretty good in the last couple of years, so he won it back to back. But then Ryan Gibbons was this year, managed to overcome him finally. Yeah, I feel pretty sorry for Ryan, because now that he's got the national jersey, there's not much racing that he can show his jersey at. So
we have that with Mads Pedersen of Denmark, because we finally have a world champion, and then he can't show it off anywhere. Which
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So moving on to kind of you writing for Team Dimension Data, and did you work with Mark Cavendish a lot while he was there?
Yeah. So I got to ride with Cav quite a lot, and I was quite a couple of times in his lead-out train. So yeah, I think I learned quite a lot from him. There's probably no better guy to learn the arts of sprinting and lead-out than him. So yeah, I think for my career was quite a big positive.
So what's it like being in a lead-out train? Is it just chaos everywhere, or is it kind of it's elbows out and you're trying to be the most dominant sprint train?
I think it's very tactical, so you kind of have to play the other teams a little bit. If you go too early or something, then you're just going to run out of space, and it's a lot about thinking about the wind directions and also where the corners are, where pinch points are, and then working out backwards where you have to be at certain times. But yeah, it's always a fight for road space and for the ideal positions, and it really gets messy when the lead-up trains are starting to run out of men and sprinters are starting to jump around from train to train. That's when it really gets elbows out and can be dangerous.
So what's it like when you pull off and you're kind of gliding down the peloton? Isn't that one of the most scary things? Because you don't know what's happening behind you, and they're coming at like, I don't know, 60, 70 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, I've done a lead out once and managed to get myself tangled up to another guy that was sprinting. So it's always that's probably the most dangerous moment for a lead out guy. I think, you have to really pay attention when you're pulling off as a lead out guy. That's you're not impeding anybody else, that you get out of the way and keep to the side of the road or something. I've seen a lot of guys, like, it's really dangerous move that some people try is the lead out pulls off, and instead of getting out of the way, they try to stay in the way of the other sprinters. But it's just a question of time before that ends up in a pile up. So when I see that, I really don't appreciate it, and I normally would tell the guy next time to not do that tactic.
So where would you be in the train, in the Mark Cavendish train? Would you have been kind of behind Renshaw, or?
No, Renshaw was always the last guy back then. So it depended on the situation. Sometimes Eddie was in front of Renshaw, and sometimes I was in front of Renshaw. But then we always had Bernie that was kind of like guiding us until we actually had to put the real power down in the last 2 kilometers. So Bernie would make sure he get us into position with around 2Ks to go, and then from there we kind of like used the power that we had in the legs.
It's just max
Eddie Sorry?
Just max adrenaline at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's adrenaline, but you still have to stay calm and make the right decisions.
Where would you say your favorite place where you've been involved in a sprint was? Because you've ridden Milan San Remo and you've done the Champs-Élysées. So is there like one particular place where you kind of feel, yeah, this is the best place to sprint? Or is it kind of everything is just a blur at that speed?
I don't particularly like the Champs-Élysées sprint because it's always such a big build up to that day. It's, nowadays they have it so late in the day, so you kind of like all the other riders that's not sprinters, they kind of relax and they enjoy the day, but you still got a job to do. So it's not the best atmosphere for focusing on the race. And also the cobbles are really rough, much rougher than people would imagine. So I don't really like that sprint. But yeah, I think the tour sprints overall, they are the nicest because it's where all the best guys are together.
So now looking at 2020, you've actually, the name's changed again for the team. It's now NTT Pro Cycling. And Bjarne Riis has come into your team as well. How has that been, having Bjarne kind of come into the team? Has he gotten involved already, or has there been any changes since then?
Yeah, Bjarne has come into the team, and I think he's made a big difference in how the team is operating positively. I think he's really passionate and he's very analytical. So I think he also is good in motivating people and getting the best out of every person in the team. So I think that has changed a lot. I'm really disappointed that we couldn't race more this year because I think the changes he was bringing was all positive changes. And I think every rider was inspired to show their best, and I think he was able to bring the best out of every rider so far. So yeah, we could already see a big improvement in the first couple of months in the way we were racing. So I think we would have seen more improvements as the season goes on, but he's also been instrumental in this time where we can't race, that to keep everybody focused and motivated and setting goals for everybody that we can reach while we can't race. So I think that influence has been really critical.
And just the last question, who was your idol growing up?
I think we all had idols back then, like guys like Lance Armstrong, Jan Ulrich, Marco Pantani. But it's hard to say that they were idols after what happened in that era. So kind of maybe they were kind of like showing the way what to look out for in your career rather than being real role models to aspire to. But I think also a guy like Robert Hunter was the first South African to really break it into Europe and first South African to win stages in all the Grand Tours, or actually even do all the Grand Tours. So I think he's always been like a idol for South African riders.
So that's basically it for this interview. Thank you, Reinardt, for taking part. It's been really interesting just getting your unique insight to the peloton, basically.
Thank you for interviewing me.
So that's it for this second interview. Special thanks to Reinardt for sharing his unique insight as a pro. If you haven't already, why not give Reinardt a follow on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and we've included all of those in the link down below. And click here if you want to see our very first lockdown interview with Miguel Honoré of the Koenig Quickstep. And as always, thank you for watching and see you next time.